Welcome to the Challenge Chronicles. I'm Devin Jordan. I'm with Trace Armstrong and Rob McIntyre. We're here to talk about the Challenge Double Agents episode 14. Trade last night, recording this on a Thursday. If you want to watch this episode on YouTube, we have, I think at this week, 2 successful recordings of an actual video of this podcast. So you can watch it there at the Challenge Chronicles. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, same place. If you want to send us a listener email question, I think we have at least one that we'll get to a little bit later. You can send those to thechallengechronicles@gmail.com. If you'd leave a rating or review, we'd appreciate that. And then we still have the listener email survey, which you can find a link to in the description of the show. We really appreciate all the responses that we got last week. We actually got more than I would have expected. So that's great. All of us are very thankful for that. So if we're going to leave it up for one more week, and then probably go from there, it really helps us out. Anything else? Any housekeeping from either of you?
No.
Okay. Episode 14. I thought this one was pretty good. After we had gotten some ones that weren't as great, I thought this one was pretty fun to watch.
Yep. I was a little devastated at the end of it, though. Just did not expect that to go down that way.
So do you think that they adjusted? I'm asking because I don't know. Do you think that they adjusted the elimination in the sense that they didn't want this to last forever, maybe like a lot of the other ones have been, and they made the ropes longer? Because it kind of seemed like that a little bit.
Maybe. Every elimination they've brought back so far this season, they've changed up something. Did they say anything that they changed for this one? I didn't hear them say anything.
Yeah, he did. He had said
that he made it longer, taller, or something.
What it was.
So, yeah, I think we had talked about this. I don't remember what the exact context of this was, but we had a conversation a few episodes ago about, does Darrell still have it? And I think the context of his age came up. And so we had talked about this a while ago. You still would have thought he would have been somewhat competitive in this elimination, which is not what happened at all.
I just think Corey's good, and Corey's also Corey was a collegiate football player. Dude's fast.
Yeah, I think it's more of Corey is a legit, decent, off-the-block type sprinter, and Darrell has never been fast. He's been endurance. He's never been like a out-of-the-block, ready-to-go kind of guy. And I think this was just we have those conversations. I would pick Darrell every time against Corey, but, out of 100 permutations, there's always chances for Corey to win. And I think this one just came up Corey.
Well, remember on the Dirty 30 Purge where, the last stage, they had to carry the little blocks and, it was one guy and one girl who made it out. And Corey dusted everybody, including Darrell. It was Darrell, Tony, Shane. And Corey was just way ahead of everybody else, carrying the thing up the little, I don't know, what do they call it? The arena they were in or whatever?
It was like a big castle they were on. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he torched everybody with that and set off the cannon before anybody got close. So I just think Corey's fast. And I think Corey, it's funny, Corey had everybody called him overrated for a while. And when everybody's calling you overrated, you really can't be overrated because then, who's doing the overrating? But I just think he's good now, and I think he's got still a little bit of the backlash from his bad performance on Invasion or some other disappointments earlier in his career. But I think now he's a high-level competitor.
So where would you rank him out of the people left on this show? If we did a power ranking right now, just of the full male side, where would you place him?
In terms of what? Just in general, if we had another season that started today, who would be the favorite or?
Probability to win the show. Not necessarily this season, but a given season, right? So next season. So if all of these guys if it was only a 1, 2, 3, 5-person male cast with these 5 competitors, who do you think would be most likely to win?
Probably still have CT number 1. I just think with the shape he's in now, he brings
he's
a lot
noticeably gotten in better shape throughout the season. If you look at him, he's looking more cut as the season has gone on. He's really done a good job getting in better shape through the season. Yeah, I think so. There was a moment. There was a moment in this episode where I looked at him and realized he was leaner.
I think he's gone the opposite direction a little bit. So look at the moment when they first get there, and look at his face. He looks thinner in that shot than he does now, I think. But I don't know. I could be wrong. So you would still have CT ahead of him. Who else would you have for the men?
I might have him next. I think I would definitely have him above Fessy. I'm just not really buying it with Fessy. I think he's got a lot of holes. He and Kyle I've always considered to kind of be on the same plane of competitor. I'd probably have Corey a little bit ahead of Kyle.
What about Leroy?
Yeah, him versus Leroy is interesting too. I think Leroy's just a pretty good politician at this point. Like, I think in terms of long-term decision making, he's actually very good. Yeah, that one's close too.
I would probably go CT, Fessy, Leroy, Corey, Kyle, kind of in that range, both at the bottom. I don't necessarily think one is significantly better than the other. I would have them kind of in a tier.
Yeah, and see, I think I put Fessy last, not because I think he's horrible. I kind of agree with Rob, is there's just some holes in his game that are not filled up yet. It doesn't mean he can't vault into another tier if he keeps doing the show. But as of right now, I'm not on the Fessy train.
I wonder, it would be interesting to see how Fessy would do. And I think we know the answer, or May, how he would do if he wasn't on a season where there were a significant amount of people from Big Brother on it. I think that's definitely helped the first 2 seasons of his career, having a large alliance that he can fall back on.
He's also been really lucky that he's been on Skull Twist seasons too. Yeah. You know, like if we had a regular season where they keep throwing the younger guys in every time, I feel like he would be in way more eliminations than he would be because of the skulls.
I agree. Okay. What did I'm trying to even remember what the challenge was. This challenge was fine. I think I thought
it was pretty good.
And I think this kind of falls into the group of missions where if the cast was bigger at this point in time, I think we would like this one a lot less, just because it's super repetitive and they do the same thing over and over. And I think we also got bailed out a little bit that how many people DQ'd? 3 at least.
So 3 really? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people, like no one. So Anissa and Kyle went first and they completed it successfully. And it was a long time before anyone else actually was able to finish the mission.
It was only CT and Cam and Leroy and Casey were the only other 2 teams that did it. Fessy and Nani didn't do it. Darrell and Amber didn't do it. And who was the other team?
Corey barely got in the water.
Corey and Big T didn't do it.
Yeah. So I think that kind of helped make the mission go by a little bit more quickly.
Yeah, Anissa and Kyle winning was definitely the most interesting outcome too. That's something I was saying. Yeah. I thought they were the absolute easy throw-in, but then them winning definitely set off a chain of like reaction where there was actually interesting stuff happening in the house instead of just being a formality.
The politics of this episode fascinated me a lot because Leroy and Darrell kind of revealed that they were, really watching out for each other. And Leroy really finally, and I mean this so hardcore here, Leroy finally started playing the game for himself in this season, in my opinion. Like last season, or what was it, War of the Worlds 2, I feel like was the closest we've seen of this type of Leroy. For him to look at his guy that he was working with and say, hey, man, if it comes down to me or you, I'm protecting me. And Darrell comes back and goes, well, if I go down there and I win, I'm taking your partner because I got to look out for me. And so to me, it was just like a really awesome, straightforward moment where in the past, I feel like Leroy might have flim-flammed around that. Instead, he just came right out and said it. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what you do here.
Yeah.
Who would have Leroy have then taken to be his partner, right? So who would have been up for grabs at that point? It would have been...
if we assume Corey goes in, yeah.
He would have taken Amber B then.
Yeah.
That's a pretty dick move to Big T then to make her the rogue agent again. She can't even go in. Like, I think he might take Big T because he knows if he takes her, she's going in the next week. Then if she goes in the next week,
I don't think he cares. The way he's played the game this year is he cares about him.
What I'm saying is, if Big T goes in again the next week, he's due for another partner again, anyways.
Why?
because she's going in the next week. So she might
Yeah,
have
I know she's going in the next week, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she'll be his partner.
That's what I'm saying, but he'll get a different partner. It's basically, would you rather have Amber beat, or would you rather have like a random spin of the wheel?
I mean,
I'd rather have Amber
realistically,
beat.
though, it would probably be Kyle and Anissa going in if it wasn't. So it would be Big T versus Anissa.
That's true. He's probably ending up with one of them.
Either way, it's a bad draw. Like, no matter what happens here, he's going to get a bad draw. So he's better off not going down there.
Yeah, I definitely the long term. I've really been impressed with him and Cam's long term like planning this season, and even in World of Worlds 2 as well. They actually have. You see so many times where people are just thinking about what's right in front of them and not thinking about 2 steps down the line, like we see with Anissa later on.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been really impressed with them with that. That was definitely the right move.
I think there was a little bit less suspense than they tried to play off in the episode, because early on we saw that Cam, in a conversation that Cam, Leroy, and I think someone else had, they said that they had to make someone else beside Corey and Big T the house vote. That's what they wanted, right? They did not want them to be the house vote. And then later on, Big T even said that she didn't want to be the house vote at that point. So everyone was pretty much aligned, even though they kind of backstepped a little bit before the vote, and Big T said that she came around to being the house vote. There was just no way that Darrell wasn't going to be the house vote there. They had all the numbers, and it ended up being that Darrell and Amber B were the only people that didn't vote for them to go in as the house vote. It was completely united.
Corey and Big T voted for themselves as well.
Okay, yeah. So the group of people. So do you think that we're actually going to get? It doesn't seem like it, and it's kind of surprising that they didn't do it this season. That we never got the moment where the opposite sex went in for elimination than we thought would go in going into the elimination, right? So there was never a time where we were 100% sure it was going to be a male elimination and they threw in a female, or vice versa. And there was never a time where we thought it was going to be a 100% one sex and they were like, psych, you're both up for elimination. That never happened.
I mean, I was saying, like, as this episode was going, it could have definitely been a female elimination. I mean, there was no real gauging around, and all this, both sides need one more skull to get fixed out. So I didn't see why it couldn't have been women's elimination. But I think the show is just very transparent with their messaging on this. They very rarely will lead us in one direction and pull us the other one when it comes to what gender is going in.
How do we think they'll handle next week with Big T? Because she's I guess she's CT's partner. Let's talk about that first then. So I thought that was a pretty good moment when CT was reunited with Big T again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I thought it was fine.
I think it was good. I mean, I think CT realizes, okay, if I'm going to lose Cam and I've got like Big T and Amber, I mean, as of right now, they appear to be about the same. Like maybe Amber's a tad better, but CT's comment of, Big T, she just keeps somehow finding a way to stick around and do stuff. Like, I mean, and that challenge was pretty difficult with as cold as that water was. I don't care how good your wetsuit is. Like that water's cold. And the fact that she was able to do it says a lot. I mean, if she's able to turn her brain off and just plow through stuff like that, that's what you're looking for in somebody in a final. No matter how awful what you're about to do is, can you turn your brain off and just do it?
So I think she's been pretty significantly better than Amber B so far.
I think a big nail in we talked about this last week about there being some type of edgic for the challenge. And so if Cam were to win the season, right, there would be no reason why the editors, and they were doing some type of manipulation with the edgic where they give a higher level of viewability to the winner and edit them in a favorable light. There's no way that Survivor would include those confessionals of CT and CT's conversation with Nani, where Nani was talking, or where CT talked about how Cam was panicking in the in the mission and how he was second guessing on picking Cam as a partner. There's no way they would include that. Because they don't necessarily even need to include that into the episode. It's just not really necessary for that
I
to be
agree.
there.
Well, my stance has never been that they edit them the same way, but I think they're definitely going to like I don't see Casey or Fessy winning just with a lot of it just because I just don't think they have a narrative.
So I thought we were kind of agreement on this partway through the season, and I think last week you started to say something differently. So do you think that they give people a higher level of viewability and that they try and make them look more favorable, or do you think it's just a higher level of viewability and narrative?
I wouldn't say favorable is the right word. I would say they try to present a satisfying outcome more than anything.
Okay, so you do, and so do you think that they do that by just giving them a narrative, or do you think that they try and shape them in a way that makes them look good?
I would say more a narrative than make them look good.
Mm-hmm.
And because I also think with the way the challenge is structured, you can't just like you're going to make Hunter and Ashley look good when the story ends by actually stealing Hunter's money. Like I don't think that.
And
works.
I know that's what I was trying to say last week. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that they try and do that. I think that there may be some circumstances where they give them a higher level of visibility, and I think even at that, I'm kind of skeptical. If we went back and just looked at total confessionals for the winners relative to the amount of episodes that they're on, I would be curious to see that. But I definitely do not think that they try and shape the narrative in a way that looks them like better. I think I'm kind of on Trace's side with this. I think they just the editors put out there kind of what they give them a lot more.
Yep. Because I mean, you think about this, like you talk about like satisfy. I think that Rob's kind of right there. They give you, or whoever said it, they go for just a satisfying ending, whether it's a good one or a bad one. You know, you go back to the ruins and the winning team is Derek, Evan, Kenny, Johnny, and Susie. Other than Derek and Susie's debatable, but you could definitely make the argument that Kenny, Evan, and Johnny come off looking really bad as people in that season, like just awful bullies.
I feel like it's just hard to do anything else with them.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, the narrative of the season really becomes these awful, bully, terrible people who are so focused on the game and they don't care about the destruction that's caused. Well, they won. So there's your satisfying ending. Is unfortunate. Well, it's not a happy ending for a lot of people, but that's the story. I'd be
curious if you went back and looked at how that season was received. Most people received them positively. Like that did happen.
Wait, what? Say that again?
Would you think most people were fans of Kenny, Evan, Johnny around that time period? Or
I don't think so, dude. Not really.
Well, I think we have to go back and look at it. I would think that they probably were.
Watching that live, no, I don't remember that at all. Like at least with the people that I was watching it with.
Okay,
I don't know. I think it depends on the. It's hard to gauge the social media reaction back then because the people online discussing the show was a lot smaller than it is now, and the general vibe that I got away from it is if you're a fan of Kenny and Evan and think they're funny, you absolutely love the ending of that season. Yeah. If you're indifferent or you don't like them, you really hated how that ended. You were really trying, because I felt like even in the editing of the ruins, especially in those last couple episodes, they really played up the underdog angle of Kellyanne and who's the other person there? Sarah. Like they really, really tried to play that up. And the way they even edited the final, it was legit. But like Kellyanne and Sarah were winning that final up until the balance beam, and Kellyanne went slower than molasses trying to get through that.
Well, I think it also.
You think people rooting for Wes back then?
No, not necessarily. So I think a lot of this comes down to how do we define satisfying, right? So if we're defining satisfying as people are like, okay, I can see how they win. That makes sense how they won. Or are we defining satisfying as like, okay, I'm glad they won. I'm happy that person won. I think it's more the former than the latter.
Mm-hmm.
And I would agree with the former and not the latter. Sorry, say that again.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I necessarily disagree. I just think with the challenge, it's hard to have a consistent like winners edit because different number of people win every season. There's different circumstances around how they win every season. Whereas with Survivor, like Edge of Extinction doesn't have a winners edit, right? Because the guy's not on the season basically for the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, there's exceptions for sure. I mean, but by and large, they try and paint it a specific way. And I
Well,
mean,
but they have this. The winner wins the same way every season, basically.
what do you mean?
Well,
Like,
like
it's a
on like
tribal
One of the
council
World's 2,
vote.
4 people win. Like you're gonna, it's harder to like sort out a scientific winners at it when there's 4 people winning versus just one.
Yeah, but that's extremely rare now. I mean, how
Well,
often have we
2
had
win
four
basically
people win
every
lately?
season at least.
Yeah, 2 or 1, right? And so that's a lot more doable. I think I think if they wanted to do it, they could definitely do it. Um, I just don't think that they feel the need to do it, right? I think that they're more concerned with week to week just giving you the best content. And I would almost kind of prefer that Survivor did it that way too, right? We get a more unfiltered view of what's actually going on in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Yeah. And I think there's evidence to support that that's exactly the way that the challenge does it. And let's look at last week's episode. They got nothing. And so rather than force another 90-minute episode, they said, you know what? We're just going to do a 60-minute episode this week because the story we have to tell is not compelling. So rather than try to force a 90-minute episode, let's do 60. And then this week they had enough stuff going on. They were able to make another 90-minute episode. So I think that's exactly the way they think.
I don't think there's so much stuff people talk about that they leave on the cutting room floor that would seem a lot more entertaining than what we get.
Well, I think there's also a disconnect between what they think. So I think there's stuff that they leave on the cutting floor that we think would be entertaining, but they don't necessarily think the audience as a whole would be entertaining, right?
For
So
sure.
I don't. We're definitely not the target audience for this.
Like, we really
So are
love
there?
the shit show. And that's the type of stuff a lot of people argue should be in the regular show still, because back in the early challenges, they showed all the goofiness and the fun stuff. Well,
Yeah,
that's what the
totally.
shit show is here for now. You know, like, they really want to
Yeah.
drive the narrative of the competition and the politics and then show a little bit of fun, but let's not just show stuff for the sake of showing stuff.
Yeah, so if you divide the show into random stuff that happens in the house, politics, drama that happens between the competitors, eliminations, and the challenge. I think the challenge would be by far like fifth on that list, and it like wouldn't even be close. The actual
For me,
missions
it
that they
just
do
depends on
week
what
to
each
week.
one of those is. Like, I don't want to say definitively I prefer, like, there's one that I even value more than the other ones. It just depends on what the quality of that situation is. Like, there's
I'm
plenty of
saying on
drama that I just
average.
don't even need.
I'm saying on average. I put that beneath everything else. Like I just don't really like. I mean, that's the one part of the when we take notes for this stuff. That's the one part that like I mean, we covered the challenge for this week in what, like 15, 20 seconds. We barely even spoke about it.
Yeah. There's just, yeah. There very rarely is. I guess there's not many missions that would come out like, oh, wow, I wish that was longer. Like, there's very rarely a mission that I'm like, they should have given more time to that one.
They're either properly done or they're way too long. You know, never do we come away going, man, I wish I'd seen more of that daily challenge today. It's very rare.
Yeah.
So what do we think about the Anissa Kyle? I think Anissa absolutely took a shotgun to her and Kyle selves in the foot with this move.
Wait,
Okay, please explain that, because I want to hear
putting
your
in Corey?
reasoning before I respond.
So I actually think the main reason why you need to put anybody but Corey in is so
I
if
know what you're gonna
Kyle,
say.
yeah, if Kyle puts in Darrell, Fessy, or CT, one
Yeah.
of them goes in, then they win, and then there's one less skull. We don't know what happens to the other skull. But then Corey still needs to go in next
Yeah.
week now. So that's taking up a spot in elimination that could be Kyle.
Yeah. And
Where
Big T still needs to go in too, right?
Yeah.
So there's still 2 people that need a skull, and they just got rid of a really good competitor either way, right? Because it's Darrell versus CT or Fessy. So yeah, I agree.
I actually
that would have
agree
definitely been
too.
the better move.
Because I feel like Anissa trying to be nice to her friend CT of however many years was the absolute wrong play here, because you cannot look me in the face and say that if they didn't win that challenge today, they were the ones going in. You also can't tell me that next week that if they don't win, they're going in again. So Anissa's going to have to do that. So it's like, what is the point of, you can still be friends, but in the context of the game, say, look, listen, in this game, y'all don't have my back. So because you don't have my back, this is what I have to do. And it made perfect sense to put CT versus Darrell or Fessy versus Darrell in that situation,
Or you
because
could have,
you want to
I
get
would have put
rid of that.
Leroy in. If you put
yeah, you would
Leroy
have been
in,
able to
that's
be. He would have been completely justified in throwing in Leroy, right?
Mhm.
Leroy screwed him over in the mission by putting him first. He
Mhm.
knew that he wasn't going to vote for him in. I don't think there's any
Blindsided him in
reason.
episode 1.
Yeah, and he puts Leroy in. Yeah,
and Leroy is
I
also
think
the
that.
head honcho right now. Like Leroy's got the
Yeah,
most connections in the house. If you put him in, then you might even have some of the votes at that point if you can get CT to vote with you now.
Mhm. Because CT and Kyle were kind of working together up until a certain point. So it's like, maybe that does make sense. But I feel like putting Corey in was the wrong move, too. I really do.
Absolute wrong move.
There was one piece of the fallout, though, that really worked in his favor, in that Darrell goes home. So the guy with probably arguably the best endurance, he's won 4 finals. He's been there. He's done that. He's gone. But you get Corey, who's still a good competitor, but the other thing that he got was CT is now partnered with Big T again. So to me, and this is my opinion here for reals on this, I feel like this final is wide open right now. Like, it's wide open. And with Darrell out of the power rankings and the way the teams are reshuffled again, the power rankings are completely shuffling on my end too for this week, because I mean, it's anybody's final if the teams stay intact and they indeed run it as pairs.
Well, it's just hard to say what the teams are going to even end up as now, because I really think they're going to cut down to 4 each, because TJ was saying nobody's in the final yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if they go down to 4 each, we're having another spin of the wheel on partners. Like, we just don't even know who's going to be partnered with who.
Exactly.
Didn't we assume that they were going to go down to 4? At least I kind of thought they.
I had always kind of thought they were going to go down to 4.
I feel like we have just made the assumption that traditionally they like to have, when they've done pair seasons, the original plan was always 4 pairs except for Rivals 1. When they did X's 1, they were originally supposed to have 4 teams, but the 2 DQs ruined that. So they didn't do 4 teams in the final. It dropped down to 3. The same thing happened in not X's. Maybe it was X's 2. Yeah, it was X's 2.
Well, with Rivals and like Rivals 2, the thing is you have the men's bracket and the female bracket. Mm-hmm. So you had 6 teams in the final, basically, with 3 each. So I think that's a different situation.
It's a different thing. But so when you go back to other pair seasons, like the Fresh Meats of the world and stuff, from Battle of the X's on, they really were trying, when they did a male-female pair season, to do 4 teams. But between DQs and injuries, they never were able to actually make it happen. And I think this year we're actually going to get the 4 teams.
And from Vendetta's on, they've had basically 8 people in the final at least every single time.
Mm-hmm.
So my assumption on what they're going to do, you guys may think this is different. I think we're going to have 3 more episodes and then 2 reunion episodes. Mm-hmm. Of the 3 episodes that we have left of the standard part of the season, I think next episode's going to be straight up. I think it's going to be a traditional episode. After that, we may get some like random who knows, they could throw something at us. The last part of that episode, I think, or some part of that episode will be the final, and then the last episode will be entirely the final. So we're really winding down here. All right, so let's talk about, what did we think about Corey's decision to steal Cam?
Smart.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think
it was the smartest move he could make. Yeah, like he upset the apple cart, and he went from having a roulette wheel of questionable partners, or not even questionable. Ashley would have been a good partner if she'd been able to win elimination this season, but he never was paired with anybody that was just blow away awesome aside from Ashley the whole year. And now he's arguably got the best female in the house. So I think he wins. Like, I don't say he wins the final, but that was a winning decision.
I definitely think it was the right move. It's just hard to say what's going to happen. Like we said, like if there's 3 more eliminations, basically, I just have no clue who's going to end up partnered with who.
You think there's going to be 3 more eliminations?
Well, I think that there's going to be one more male elimination, 2 more female. You don't think so?
I don't. I think we're going to get the 1 more female elimination, and then I feel like we're going to get a purge episode. Well, and all the teams will have to compete in like almost a mini final or a really weird situation, and they're going to drop the worst pair.
Yeah,
Or
I
they'll
just don't
do
think we have enough.
something like it's an individual challenge, and the way they finish is the way their pairs are for the finals, something like that.
They honestly might go into the final with 5 and purge people partway through, or they could do something like that before. I think we're going to get one more straight up elimination, and then they're going to do something where they send multiple people home. I think that's
I
probably
could
going to
see
be
a
what happens.
double elim. I think like a double, like what they did last season with like a double elimination hall brawl. Like I definitely think that's in the cards.
It's possible.
Uh, yeah, so
I
I
am
mean,
very much in that opinion that I think that it's going to be only 4 teams in the final. I think from a narrative perspective, it's going to be easier to follow, but they don't always think that way when it comes to that. Because when there's too many people in the final, Rob's made that decision before. Like it's just too much going on when you're trying to follow too many strings in a final. It's hard.
so yeah, that's a good point. I could see them doing this where next week is a straight up episode. Episode after that, episode 16, that would be mostly straight up, except for the fact that it's a double elimination. I could see that, and then episode 17 would be entirely the final.
And I could even see because they've. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hopefully, they have more content to show for the final this season than they did last season, because last season was a joke.
I mean, you would think they have to. That was ridiculous.
One thing that I did not take into account, and I kind of mentioned it a minute ago, is it's 19 episodes, and we're assuming 2 for the reunion, which has been the standard lately. I didn't think about them doing a behind-the-scenes type shit show and that counting, so we could just be getting one more episode, a purge, and then a 1-episode final.
I just don't see that happening.
Last season, they also did a 1-episode reunion, where traditionally they've done 2, right? Season prior.
I think they had 2.
But I think it was because they were on Zoom, whereas this one was actually filmed in person. So we probably will get the 2 episode, I would think.
I went back and because we always talked about the how Corey did in the final last season. I went back and watched that yesterday. And I thought when I was looking through the episodes, I thought it was just one reunion, but I could be wrong. Here, I'll look now. Keep talking.
Yep. I really think it was 2 last season. But anyways, I still don't think. When did they have the mid-season trailer?
3 episodes ago?
Yeah.
Well, because I really think there's a decent chance we're going to run it all the way out to 19, and then after that,
so.
How are they going to have enough content?
No way.
I just don't think they will.
What episode is this?
14.
Dude, so they're going to go 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. There's going to be 5 more episodes.
I don't see that happening.
Okay, maybe not, dude. Like, I think there's still a lot of things on the table here, but I would be stunned if there was only 2 more episodes, essentially, or even
no. I think there's going to be 3 more episodes.
Yeah, I think 3 sounds right, but
there was only one reunion last year. There was one 60-minute reunion.
Okay.
And then they had a behind the Total Madness, wherever the fuck that was.
I don't even remember watching it, weirdly enough.
I think that may have been the shit they didn't show, or the same type of thing. And so they had 18 episodes last season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Either way, you know what's interesting is we talk about in the past when we've covered the older seasons, we feel like as they get towards the end of the season, like they start to drag a little bit just because there's less people on the cast and stuff kind of winds down as you get towards the end. Other than last week, I really haven't gotten that vibe from this season. I feel like there's been a lot of maneuvering, and because of the partner changes and the implications of what happens with the elimination, I really feel like this season is not ending with it winding down. It kind of actually feels like it's ramping up because of what's happening.
I don't know. I think we got some duds in a row there. I think we got some duds. I thought this episode was good. I think we're all kind of in alignment with that. But I don't know. This season's been okay. Like, I don't have any huge complaints about this season. It hasn't been the best season. Definitely better than last season. Out of the last 4 seasons, I would probably put this one in 3rd as far as my total enjoyment. Unless like the next, I mean, even if the next 3 episodes were complete fucking duds, I would still say this is better than Total Madness.
I would probably have it second. I'd have it above War of the Worlds too.
I would agree with that.
I think it has been very good. I think I think this episode though just shows like we would be having this much cutthroat politics every episode if we didn't have the skulls.
We would be having, say that again, we would be having more
We would be
politics if
having
we
people
didn't have
have
this
to like do stuff politically if at basically every episode if we didn't have the skulls. Like the
to
only
stay out
reason
of
why
elimination.
Leroy has to backstab Darrell is because there's not two people without skulls. There's only one. So I think that the skull is just. I think for the most part they've been a pretty big dud. I think they have to be moved out going forward. I think it just
Also,
makes the
why
second
don't you
half of
like
the
them?
season so
Because it's
formulaic.
predictable on who has to go in, because they pretty much they give an opportunity to the people that don't have a skull to go in. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it just makes it where a lot of people just like sit around, don't try in the mission, and then just let the people walk into elimination. It makes 75% of the episode. We know what's going to happen.
Because they have to go in because they need a skull. That's what
Yeah,
you're saying,
like
right?
because they have to go in. Where like the only reason why Leroy has to make a move on Darrell this episode is because there's not two people without skulls. If
Do you
Kyle
think
and Corey didn't have skulls, they'd both just be going in.
do you think we would ever get to a point? Well, there's also a disagreement on how we think they should have played this week, right? We don't necessarily think that Kyle and Anissa should have thrown in the people that didn't have a skull. Um, I don't know. I think they kind of ran up into the same issue that you were saying before, where a lot of the time it was pretty predictable on who would get thrown in a traditional season, where the skull twist wasn't in play because the alliances were so skewed in one direction or another.
That's only War of the Worlds 2 to me, really. And that's just because of the large teams format. If you go back to other seasons where like War of the Worlds 1, when you have like the call out format, like on that season, basically everybody's pretty much on the table each week because we don't know who's going to get power.
Yeah,
And then we also
and
don't, and then if they're calling somebody out, that's somebody from the other side of the house typically.
yeah, no, I definitely agree. I like that format quite a bit better. The free agents. It was
Mhm.
pretty similar to free agents, wasn't it? In
Well,
War of
see,
the
free
Worlds.
No.
agents, I don't like the draw. I really don't like the draw because having it just be random,
Oh
then
yeah, it
there's
was
no
random.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
I
But
I
think
don't
at
that
like
the
it
was
end
just
of
more
the
being
like
day,
completely random. But
that was more like the duel then, wasn't it? On the duel, you
yes,
could
yeah,
call
it's like
anyone out.
exactly. And that's why
Okay.
I would love to see, don't even call it the duel. Maybe you do call it the duel, but I would love to see another duel type season because I really love that format. Like one episode, everybody competes as an individual. The next mission, it's pairs or whatever, the format where there's even Stevens on both sides. So it would have been pairs first and then an individual. And then the final, just get rid of that whole partner people up on the final piece of it. That was the only thing with Duel 2 that was a mistake. If they had not paired people up on the final, I would have been like, this is a perfect season. Because I love the fact that the only way you're safe is if you win. And then otherwise, whoever gets picked to go into elimination, they get their choice. They can pick anybody in that lineup. And to me, it creates for interesting, not just politics, but it creates interesting matchups. Like as much as I knew Davis wasn't going to beat Evan in Duel 2, it was still interesting to see Davis shoot a shot and say, you know what, if I'm going down, I'm going to try to take the big dog.
it also leads to a lot more rivalries in elimination. Like obviously, because you're even creating something just by calling somebody out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of formats for elimination that I don't mind. Like I'm fine with, but the skulls is not one that I've been a fan of. Do we think they should go back to having male and female eliminations the same week too, or do we like them split up?
If it means more eliminations, but I don't think it necessarily would.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we're more in an area now where because they have larger episode orders, they don't need to have that anymore because it would
yeah.
it's just not needed now with the amount of episodes we get.
This season's worked out where at least like the male and female have an incentive, even if they're not the one going in that week, to try just so they can protect their partner, or, do other stuff. And we don't know necessarily who's going to go in. Whereas like last season or other seasons they've had it where they alternate. Sometimes the men or the women just don't need to try because like if it's the other elimination going in, the other side going in, who cares?
Do we know if the rest of the episodes are going to be 90 minutes, or will some of them be
Well,
60
we didn't
minutes?
even know last week's was going to be 60.
We knew like the day
Okay.
before. That was the closest we
I
got.
knew
Was
while
the
I was
day before.
watching. I was 6 minutes in and looked at the episode. I was like, oh, it says it's only an hour. And then we got halfway through and I'm like, there's no way this is 90 minutes. Like this is like nothing happening.
Yeah, we should probably head towards power rankings.
All right. I have it up. Trace, go.
All right, this is I cannot believe I'm doing this, but the way the partners stand now, I got Leroy 1, CT 2, Corey 3. And then female, I've got Casey 1, Cam 2, and Nani 3 at this point.
Wait, who did you say? Say it again.
Casey, Cam, Nani.
Okay. And then overall,
Leroy, CT, Casey.
okay, Rob.
I've got Cam, Amber B. I'll go Big T at number 3 right now.
Oh my God.
And then I'll take the guy side. I think is really wide open too. I'll have CT still at 1. I'll go CT 1, Corey 2, Leroy 3.
All right, sorry. Say that again. CT, Corey, Leroy. Is that what you said?
Yeah, CT, Corey, Leroy, and then for the overall, I'll go Cam, CT, Amber B.
Cam, CT. Yeah, I feel like both of yours changed around quite a bit this week.
We were all on the Darrell train. He's gone now, so
he's gone, and with him gone, and now Corey in, it really just blows the field wide open, and it also blows the field open because of all the partner swaps that have happened.
So even though that I was the only one that had Darrell number 1 I think I had him number 1 the last few weeks. I feel like the two of you were still higher on him than I was somehow, if that's possible.
I feel like it's because I felt like if Darrell makes the final, he wins.
Weeks.
Like that was just my feeling. But now that he's not making the final, it's like, well, crap. What do I do?
It's going to be really interesting to just see where like the roulette wheel of partners falls, because it's just going to be like what week they decide to go to the final, who's going to end up with who.
And we also don't even know if it's going to stay partners in the final. Like I think it is, but War of the Worlds 1, that's not what happened. And so it could really shuffle depending on how they run the final.
But that wasn't like they did it like 2/3 of the way through the season though, when they split it up and had multiple missions.
I mean, would it not surprise you that for them they get to the final episode and go, okay, you thought you were running this as partners, but you were wrong. Like I totally could see that. I mean, I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying it is a possibility that I have to account for.
It's on the table. I would still be surprised if they did it, but I think it's like a 15-20% chance that they'll pull a fast one like that.
I'm going to go, for the men, I'm going to go Fessy, Leroy, CT. For the women, I'm going to go Casey, Cam, Amber B. And then overall, I'm going to go Screw it. I'm going to put wait, I said Fessy. No, I said Fessy, CT, Leroy. That's what I'm going to go with. And then overall, Casey, Cam, and then Fessy. And then actually, I am going to put Leroy ahead of CT. I feel much more strongly about the women's side than I do the men's side. Like I feel pretty confident.
When do you have Fessy at number 1? I'd have him last.
I think you have to have Kyle last right now because Anissa is currently his partner.
So the thing with him is though, like he's going to be in the final. No one's going to want to go back in against him in elimination. I think he's like, it's very unlikely that he's going to put back in, especially with his alliances in the house.
That's such a small thing at this point. I mean, when we have 5 if we assume it's 4 going in, there's only one more guy who's going to go.
Yeah, but I mean, could you see Leroy or CT getting bounced right now? Especially CT now.
I really think it's going to end up being Kyle or Corey. I have a hard time seeing Leroy or CT getting eliminated too.
Yeah,
I think he's drawing pretty much dead. Like I would be very surprised if he's able to win, and very, very surprised.
That's why I said that. Like I don't really feel strongly about the men's side.
Like I would have him last by a long margin.
Over. All right, let's bet on this then. So you think he's going to be last out of those guys? I'm ready to go on this. I think he's going to.
Look, I don't know who. If he ends up with Cam, then I think it's I don't know, but I think
who, Fessy?
Yeah.
Look, we need to. So I think that really points us into the direction of we need to figure out a Casey Cam bet, because you still yet to have her ranked at all. So I feel like I shouldn't even need to give you odds here. If you don't even have her in your top 3 at this point.
Well, no, the odds were Amber B versus Casey. I've had Casey around.
Oh, I thought this was Casey versus Cam. I don't remember it being.
Well, I wanted to do both. I don't remember that at all. I remember Casey Cam. I mean, I feel really confident. Well, I think they're in the same type of tier, but if you don't even have her in your top, would you have her 4th or would you have Casey dead last? I just have a really difficult time. Thing is, I guess I shouldn't be that confident in a placing bet. I just have a really hard time seeing her winning. I could see her not doing badly.
So how you feel about Casey is how I feel about Corey. That's exactly how I feel about Corey. Because I went back and watched the pieces of the Total Madness final last week, and it's not what. So in the first leg, he beat Johnny and Fessy by a football field and a half. He did not blow them out in the first leg.
Wow,
when he finishes, you can see Johnny and Fessy behind him and Jenny. They're right there. And then for the second leg, the next day, he did what everyone would assumed he would have done. He got smoked on something that requires some brain cells. You know what I mean? He got crushed on a math problem. So I don't know. I think he has that big Achilles heel when it comes to puzzles and math. And then I don't think
how did Fessy do on that?
On the math thing?
Yeah.
He was he finished ahead of Corey. Corey going into that had the biggest lead, right? So he was first, and then coming out of that he was 4th. So he finished behind all the rest of the guys.
How does Fessy finish so far behind him then?
I think a lot of them just gave up, once they saw Johnny was going on. So I think we have to kind of hold that with a grain of salt.
I don't know. The second day of that final sucks so much.
Yeah, was that the day too where they had the part that we didn't see with the slingshot that they didn't put on the show?
Well, they had one part. I think the slingshot was actually from the first day we didn't see. I think the second day we probably didn't see was some dagger throwing thing. I want to say, I don't know. They can't spend time at them freaking dancing in the club at the beginning of the episode or walking up the mountain. They spend 10 minutes on that when it's not even consequential to the results, and we don't see what actually happens.
All right, let's do a listener email real quick. We have one from Jeff. He says, "Hey guys, what's up? You guys think that CT made a mistake choosing Cam? If this is indeed Leroy's last season, don't you think that if it came down to Cam CT and Leroy Casey in the final, Cam would not so much let him win, but she won't dig that deep to try and win, knowing that it would cost Lee his only title. She has plenty of opportunities to win in the future. Also, if one of either Cam or Leroy do go into elimination before the final, do you think that they would choose each other as partners so they can run the final together? Also, what's up with all of the females thinking Fessy is the LeBron James of running finals with the small sample size that we've seen him with? He's an average finalist at best. He gassed out last season. He's not good at puzzles. And the one time we've seen him in an eating challenge, he sucked. Isn't that what most finals are made up of? Endurance, puzzles, and eating. Thanks, Jeff. Well, thank you for your email, Jeff.
He's not wrong. We kind of had this discussion.
Somebody else is backing me then on this. That he's Fessy's short Fessy's odds, whatever they are in the final.
So do we?
In regard to the first question, that has actually been a little bit of a concern for me. That maybe if Cam and Leroy's teams are kind of coming down the pike close, she won't put a full effort into it because she knows it's his last season, and she looks like she wants to be, she'll be a staple for the show going forward.
I mean, I think if it comes down to her versus Leroy, like winning the final, I think she's still fucking like giving it all. I don't think she's gonna pull up in the final just to let him win. So is Fessy bad at puzzles? I don't remember that being the case.
Well, so we don't have a significant sample size. Well, so here's what we know. We know, remember, in Total Madness last season, there was the one episode where they had to jump into that really cold pool, and like Nelson almost died. And then Rogan, and Josh were put together to do the puzzle. And he and Ashley immediately says, Josh and Fessy, you both suck at puzzles. Just let Rogan do it. So we have that thing. Earlier this season, he and Anissa aren't able to do the puzzle. We've actually seen Anissa's pretty capable of puzzles. So I don't know what happened there. I think he's below. He's definitely below regular person average. What are his stances compared to the rest of these jamokes? Like maybe he's not that bad.
In the final from last season, he finished second though in that second leg behind Johnny.
Well, on the puzzle though, right? He finishes last overall.
Yeah, on the puzzle.
No, but last on the second day, I'm saying, like overall.
Well, Fessy was eliminated, wasn't he? On the before the night.
That was Rogan.
No, that was Rogan. Excuse me. Sorry.
So, and then for the eating thing, we know that he was trying to lose at that point. So I don't know if we can say that he sucks at eating.
I just don't think we can. Maybe we can't say he's bad at these things. I also have a hard time saying he's good.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
Whereas like other people, we know CT is good at most of this stuff, and he's in good shape. We know Leroy.
Do we think CT's in good endurance shape?
I mean, I've been the person who's been the most skeptical of him previously. This season, he just looks like he's in such like. I just haven't really seen.
I don't think he looks in good shape.
I mean, he didn't look in great shape on Invasion either, but he won.
Yeah, Invasion's a weird situation though. And the Dirty 30 final, he's bad. Like he's bad.
He was bad on Dirty 30. He was way more out of shape though on Dirty 30 than he was on this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And even compared to like War of the Worlds 2 or War of the Worlds 1, he looks like he's in way better shape.
Invasion was a really short final, wasn't it, Rob?
Invasion was such a weird final.
No, it was 3 days. Invasion was the only 3-day final.
Yeah, it was 3 days, but it's in like stages.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like the part where you have
partners.
Remember they had to do the beads like on the necklace to like
all night long.
Give somebody a penalty. And Nelson's better than him on that final. It's just Nelson gets a little bit worse partner luck, and there's also so much swimming, and Nelson's bad at swimming.
Yeah, but even CT couldn't compete a piece of the final because he couldn't do the wall climb thing.
Yeah, the ropes.
They just skipped it and took a penalty. So like he still won despite taking that penalty.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Good times.
But even like Kyle, Kyle's bad at puzzles, but I think he's better than Fessy at the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'd honestly take Kyle over Fessy, but it just depends on the partner situation. Like, if Kyle is running with Anissa, there's no way I'm picking Fessy or picking Kyle over Fessy.
I think the partnership is just such a roulette wheel at this point. Like, I just think to put any stock in somebody's paired with somebody now, like, I think there's so many things that can happen between now and the final, even with only 3 more eliminations.
I mean, for all we know, Big T could win elimination next week and pick Leroy, and it just screws up the whole thing. I mean, she probably won't, don't get me wrong, but there's just too much that we don't know what's going to happen before the final yet.
I'm going to put Leroy ahead of Fessy in my power rankings. I could be convinced of that. I don't think that there's a significant difference between Fessy and CT, though, for the final. I think CT is significantly better than him. Well, like you said, I don't think we have a good indication on puzzles. From what we've seen, CT is better. But he also has Big T as a partner, potentially. Well, and like we said, we have no idea what the partners are going to be. And we've seen
in regard to the Cam Leroy question, Cam and Leroy this episode said he'd stick with Casey. Maybe that was just buttering up Casey. They haven't given any indication really they want to run the final together, so I don't think that happens. And like I don't think Cam. Look, I think Cam is just the type of competitor where she's going to keep going in a final. Like I have a hard time seeing her cut the cord too much.
We've seen the opposite, that they don't want to be partners, and at that point it spreads out their odds that at least one of them will win some money.
Yes, right? That's really what it comes down to. Is like if you are living or living together or involved outside of the show together, you want to be on separate partners because you're spreading out the chance you're going to split $500,000.
And like we've seen the precedent. So there's obviously so many people who have cut deals on the show. Like people in general, when they're in this situation, try to spread their chances of getting the wealth versus locking up as much of it as they can.
Yeah, like it wouldn't shock me if there was a situation where, let's say somehow CT winds up back with Cam and Leroy and Casey and them. It wouldn't shock me if they all said, "Hey, let's just split this 4 ways and may the best person win here."
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thank you for sending in that message. If anyone else wants to send in a listener email message, you can send it to the challengechronicles@gmail.com. Sorry for cutting this one a little bit shorter than we normally do. We're up against a little bit of a time crunch this week.
We're still doing an hour on a 90-minute episode. Less than 90-minute episode.
This will be our shortest podcast.
Last week we did 90 minutes on an hour-long episode. Like that's
so. Leave a rating review, please. If you could leave if you could respond to the listener email survey, which is in the description below, that would also be much appreciated. And we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks. Bye.